My name is Claire Price. I'm 34 years old, and 3 weeks ago, my marriage imploded in front of about 150 people at a corporate holiday party. But I'm getting ahead of myself. From the outside, my life looked fine. Not glamorous, not tragic, just the kind of middle class, you should be grateful life people post on Instagram with a modest caption and a couple of heart emojis. I work in operations and logistics, one of those jobs that sounds impressive and makes people's eyes glaze over when you try to explain it. Until recently, I'd been a remote consultant for 4 years, helping companies streamline their supply chains from my home office in sweatpants. My husband, Ian, worked in pharmaceutical sales. He was the charismatic one who could talk to anyone, charm doctors, sweet-talk clients, and turn a no into a maybe into a signed contract. He liked the spotlight. I liked knowing the numbers behind the spotlight. We'd been married 7 years, met in college at a party where everyone pretended they weren't failing at least one class. I was studying business and operations. He was doing marketing. He made some stupid joke about the cheap beer. I called him out on his terrible taste. And somehow we were still talking when they turned the lights on. We did the usual progression. Dated, moved in together, got married young, bought a house in the suburbs with a yard just big enough to complain about mowing. We split bills, made joint grocery lists, argued about paint colors, and then forgot what we were arguing about halfway through. For the most part, it worked. If you'd asked me a few months ago, I would have said my marriage was solid. Not passionate, movie montage, perfect, but stable, comfortable. The kind of relationship where you know exactly which mug your partner will grab for their coffee and what show they'll pick on a bad day. Looking back, the first crack showed up about 2 months before the party. That's when Ian started upgrading. New shirts, new suits, a new cologne I'd never smelled on him before. Sharp, expensive, the kind that lingers in the doorway after someone leaves. He started taking longer to get ready for work, ironing his shirts more carefully, checking his reflection twice in the hallway mirror. Big client meeting today? I asked one Tuesday morning as he spent way too long making sure his tie was exactly straight. He didn't look at me. Just trying to look professional, Claire. Not everyone gets to work from home in yoga pants. The way he said it made it sound like my job was a hobby. Like the salary that paid most of our mortgage was a cute little side gig. I laughed it off in the time. You look good, I said, because he did. The suit fit him well. He smelled like money and ambition. He gave a quick, distracted, thanks, kissed the air somewhere near my cheek, and left. Then the phone thing started. We'd be sitting on his couch, half watching some show we'd both already seen. His phone would light up. He'd glance down, and suddenly whatever was on the screen was apparently more interesting than the person he'd promised to spend his life with. Sometimes he'd smile at a message and then flip the phone face down like it was muscle memory. Something funny? I'd ask. Work stuff, he'd say. Always work stuff. Always just vague enough to make me feel like I'd be dramatic if I pushed it. I didn't check his phone. I'm not proud of that. I thought I was being mature, chill. The kind of wife who doesn't snoop because trust matters. I figured if something was wrong, we'd talk about it. We were adults. We'd spent years making joint decisions about everything from buying a house to which brand of dishwasher pods to use. He'd tell me, right? Around the same time, he started going out with the team more. Sales dinners, client drinks, networking. Sometimes he'd come home buzzing with stories. Sometimes he'd come home quiet, smelling like that expensive cologne and hotel bar air. I told myself it was the job. Sales is social. He's just being good at his career. Then, one Tuesday evening, he came home with that look on his face, the one where he was trying to rehearse his words before they left his mouth. I was standing at the stove, stirring a pot of pasta, when he leaned against the counter like a guilty teenager. So, he said, staring at the cabinet door just above my head instead of at me, the office holiday party is Friday. I waited. Okay, I said. Do I need to find something that isn't a hoodie? He gave a short laugh that didn't reach his eyes. Actually, I was thinking, maybe you should sit this one out. The wooden spoon in my hand paused mid-stir. Why? He shifted his weight. It's just, my ex is going to be there. Sabrina. From before you and I met. She's back with the company now, got promoted and everything. It'll be awkward. Sabrina, I repeated, tasting the name. He'd mentioned her once years ago, casually. 2-year relationship in their early 20s. Ended when she moved to Seattle for some big sales job. In 7 years of marriage, I had never seen her face. Never felt any reason to care. And that matters because I asked. He finally looked at me, a little too quickly. Because it's a work event, Claire. I don't want drama. It's already tense enough with leadership there, and she's been friendly lately, commenting on old photos, asking about my life. I just think it'll be less messy if I go alone, show my face, and come home early. Something in my chest went cold and still. If she's making you uncomfortable, talk to HR, I said. You know that's not really my problem, right? I'm your wife, not your buffer. It's not that serious. He opened the fridge, grabbed a water bottle, used the plastic cap as an excuse not to look at me. Just do this for me, okay? Please. The please landed strangely. Too rehearsed. Too eager. I watched him, the line of his jaw, the way his fingers tightened around the bottle. We'd been married 7 years. He'd never given me a concrete reason not to trust him. Sure, he'd been distant lately, but I'd told myself it was work stress, quotas, management changes. He'd never come home smelling like someone else's perfume. Never had weird charges on our credit card that I couldn't trace. So when he said, skip one party for me, every reasonable part of my brain said, let it go. Pick your battles. This is nothing. Okay, I said slowly, if that's what you want. The relief on his face was immediate. Thank you, he said, crossing the space to kiss my temple. You're the best. I'll just go, do the rounds, and be back. Promise. He walked out of the kitchen, humming like a man who'd just dodged a bullet. What he didn't know was that a different bullet was already in the air. 2 months earlier, I'd gotten a message on LinkedIn from a recruiter. Normally, those went straight to archive. But this one mentioned a regional director of operations position at a pharmaceutical company, headquartered in Philadelphia. I almost ignored it until I saw the name of the company, the same company Ian worked for. I didn't say anything to him at first. It felt risky somehow. Like if I told him too soon, I'd jinx it, or worse, he'd get weird about it. So I went through the interview process quietly. 3 rounds, all virtual, all with corporate leadership who didn't know me as Ian's wife, just as Claire with the operations resume. They talked about overseeing multiple departments: supply chain, compliance, sales operations. It was a big step up from my remote consultant role. Bigger money, real influence, actual coworkers I could see in 3 dimensions instead of through a screen. I'd told Ian months before that I was looking for something local. I'm tired of talking to people through a webcam and then eating lunch alone, I'd said. I want to be around humans again. He'd nodded, kissed my forehead, and said, "That's great, babe," while scrolling his phone. The offer came the week before Thanksgiving. Adrian, the CEO, called me personally. "Claire, we'd love to bring you on as our new regional director," he'd said. "Your background is exactly what we've been looking for. The starting salary is 35% higher than your current rate. Full benefits, company car, clear VP track if performance goes well." I remember sitting there on the edge of our bed, staring at the dresser while he talked, feeling like my life was about to tilt. "I accept," I'd said, my voice steady, even though my heart was pounding. Adrian told me they wanted to introduce me at the holiday party. "We thought it would be fun to make it a surprise for the regional staff," he said. "We'll seat you at the executive table, I'll do a little speech, then bring you up." I didn't tell Ian. In my head, it was going to be a good surprise, the kind of thing couples tell their kids about one day. Remember when Mom showed up at Dad's holiday party as the new regional director and everyone cheered? Cute, romantic, supportive. Now the irony tastes bitter. The week of the party, Ian spent even more time getting ready for work. He bought a new black suit because everyone's going to be dressed up. He double-checked his haircut. He made some joke about not being able to embarrass himself in front of the VP of sales. "The VP?" I asked lightly. "Is that Sabrina?" He hesitated just a fraction too long. "Yeah, she got promoted when she moved back. Big deal, apparently." "Must be weird," I said, "working with your ex." He shrugged. "We're adults, Claire. It's fine." On Friday afternoon, he spent nearly 2 hours getting ready. Long shower, careful shave, hair styled with the expensive product he usually saves for weddings. He changed shirts 3 times before settling on one that made his eyes look sharper. I leaned on the bedroom doorframe and watched him put on his tie. "You look great," I said, and I meant it. He jumped a little like he hadn't realized I was there. "Thanks. Just want to make a good impression. Adrian's going to be there, you know." I swallowed a smile. "Yeah," I said softly. "I've heard he likes surprises." He didn't catch the double meaning. He checked his watch instead. "Carpooling with a couple coworkers," he said, grabbing his keys. "Don't wait up, okay? These things can drag." "Sure," I said. "Have fun." He kissed my cheek, flashed me that familiar, easy grin, and walked out the door. I watched his car disappear down the street, then went to my closet. The dress I picked wasn't dramatic, just a deep navy wrap dress that made me look like I had my life together. I did my makeup carefully, but not overdone. Professional, calm, like the kind of woman who can walk into a ballroom full of strangers and pretend she hasn't been bleeding inside for weeks. At 8:15, the car service Adrian arranged pulled up in front of our house. Clean black sedan, driver in a suit, the whole corporate cliché. I slid into the back seat, smoothed my dress over my knees, and stared out the window as the city lights blurred past. My husband had begged me not to come to this party. He had no idea I was on my way there anyway. Not as his plus one, as his new boss's boss. And somewhere between our quiet cul-de-sac and the downtown hotel, a feeling settled into my chest. A low, steady hum of dread I couldn't name yet. I didn't know it at the time, but I was driving straight toward the exact moment my marriage would explode. The hotel was one of those places that tried very hard to look effortless. Warm lighting, polished marble floors, a chandelier in the lobby that probably had its own insurance policy. The music from the ballroom bled faintly into the hallway as the driver opened my door. "Need me to wait, ma'am?" he asked. "No, thank you," I said, stepping out. "I'll be all right." I adjusted my dress, squared my shoulders, and walked toward the registration table like I belonged there. Because technically, I did. The woman at the check-in stand scanned the QR code Adrian had emailed me. Her eyes flicked to the screen, then back up to me with a polite, almost curious smile. "Welcome, Ms. Price," she said. "Executive table, front center. Mr. Foster is expecting you." Adrian, CEO, my new boss, my husband's boss. "Perfect," I said, and slipped the lanyard over my head. The ballroom was packed. Round tables covered in white linens, tiny tea lights, waiters weaving through with trays of drinks, laughter, clinking glasses, the low hum of office gossip dressed up in cocktail attire. I scanned the room automatically. It didn't take long to find him. Ian stood near the bar with a couple of coworkers from his team. He was laughing at something, hand resting lightly on a woman's shoulder as he leaned in to make a point. The woman tipped her head back, laughing too loudly. My gaze caught on the woman's face just long enough to log it. She was pretty in a sharp-edged way. Sleek hair, fitted dress, heels she'd clearly practiced walking in. She looked like she belonged in a promotional photo for successful sales team celebrating record quarter. I wondered if that was her. "Claire!" Adrian's voice cut through the noise. He waved me over from a large table near the front of the room, the executive table. I went, moving past clusters of employees who didn't know that the woman passing them was about to rearrange the org chart. Adrian stood as I reached the table. "Everyone, this is Claire Price, our incoming Regional Director of Operations. She officially starts Monday, but I wanted her to meet the team." He turned to the woman seated beside an empty chair. "Claire, this is Sabrina Carson, our VP of Sales. She came back to us from Seattle and has been killing it." The name landed like a dropped glass inside my skull. Sabrina. Ian's Sabrina. She stood, extending a manicured hand, smile perfectly calibrated. "Welcome aboard," she said. "We've all been dying to meet the mysterious new director. Adrian's been talking you up." Her handshake was warm, firm, confident, someone who expected people to like her. "Mysterious," I echoed, sitting in the chair next to her. "I hope that's in a good way." "The best way," Adrian said. "Wait until everyone hears your background." He drifted away to greet someone else. The rest of the table fell into polite small talk. Names, departments, jokes about the open bar, and the budget line it came from. I could feel Sabrina's attention sliding back toward me like a spotlight. "So," she said, crossing one leg over the other. The slit in her dress flashed just enough to look accidental and absolutely wasn't. "Where are you coming from?" "Logistics consulting," I said. "Remote. Lots of spreadsheets. Very glamorous." She smirked. "Hey, glamorous is relative. I'd kill for a day when I'm not trapped in an airport or making small talk with doctors who'd rather be anywhere else." She glanced toward the bar, the movement so casual it would have been invisible if I hadn't spent years reading people for a living. I followed her gaze. Ian was still at the bar, but now he was turned half away, scanning the room. His eyes crossed our table without registering me. My hair was styled differently than usual. The lighting was weird, or maybe his brain just refused to process what it was seeing. He looked comfortable, like he belonged there, like he was exactly where he wanted to be. I turned back to Sabrina. "Do you like being back here?" I asked. "I heard you used to be with the company years ago." Her mouth curved, remembering. "Yeah. I started in field sales right out of college. This was my old territory." She took a slow sip of her drink. "Left for a big opportunity in Seattle. came back with a promotion and a much better wardrobe. She laughed softly at her own joke, then leaned slightly closer. And some unfinished business. There was a note in her voice I didn't like. What kind of unfinished business? I asked, keeping mine light. She shrugged one shoulder, playing coy. Oh, old connections, familiar faces, people you never really stop thinking about. Another glance toward the bar. This time, her gaze landed square on Ian. Something inside me went very, very quiet. Anyone in particular? I asked. She smiled, slow and secret. Let's just say there's someone here I used to date. Long time ago. Thing is, some people grow up and realize they picked safe over exciting. Safe? The word slid under my skin like ice. Safe isn't always a bad thing, I said. Safe can mean stable, loyal, or boring, she countered lightly. Routine, predictable. She swirled the drink in her glass, watching the ice rotate. He's married now, she went on, as if we were just sharing gossip, to someone totally wrong for him. She works from home doing some remote consulting thing. Lives in sweatpants. Doesn't like going out. Doesn't understand his world. He told me she's basically checked out of the marriage. I stared at her, keeping my face smooth by sheer force of will. Sounds rough, I said, for her. She laughed. Oh, please, she has it easy. He does everything. Makes the money, keeps the spark alive, tries to pull her out of her cave, and she just doesn't care. She took another sip. Some people just don't deserve the partners they get. For a second, I wasn't in the ballroom anymore. I was at my kitchen table, building budget spreadsheets so we could afford to upgrade our house. I was covering most of the mortgage while Ian chased commissions. I was listening to him come home and complain about clients until 11 at night, nodding, validating, being supportive. Safe, boring, checked out. He'd said that to her, about me. You seem very invested, I said, my voice calm and distant. In this married man. She chuckled. We've been reconnecting, messaging, drinks a few times. He says his marriage is basically over. I told him life's too short to stay with someone who drags you down. She glanced at my lanyard, noticing my last name. Do you have a husband? She asked, like it was an afterthought. I do, I said. We've been married 7 years. Lucky guy, she said automatically, then smiled like she'd just told a harmless lie. Is he here tonight? He might be, I said. I guess we'll see. Her eyes flicked past me again, landing on the bar. Ian had turned fully now, talking to someone from his team. His posture was relaxed, that easy sales guy confidence rolling off him in waves. He still hadn't seen me. I just hope certain people are ready, Sabrina murmured, more to herself than to me, for things to finally change. Adrian returned to the table, clinking his glass with a spoon to get everyone's attention. Folks, he called out, if I can have your attention for a few minutes before we get back to eating and embarrassing ourselves on the dance floor. The music faded. Conversations quieted. People turned toward the executive table. Sabrina straightened in her chair, smoothing her dress. Some part of her clearly expected the spotlight to land on her. Adrian stood, smiling his practiced CEO smile. First of all, he said, thank you all for an incredible year. We've grown, we've adapted, we've survived 3 system changes and 2 supply chain crises, and somehow you all still show up with a sense of humor. Mostly. A ripple of laughter moved through the crowd. I scanned the room again, once more finding Ian near the bar. He was half listening, half talking to a coworker, his drink in his hand. Adrian continued, tonight, I'm especially excited because we get to introduce a new member of our leadership team. We've brought on a regional director of operations to help us tighten processes, support the field, and position us for an even bigger year next year. At the table, Sabrina's posture sharpened. Employees looked at each other, curious. Please welcome. Adrian turned slightly, extending his hand toward me. Claire Price. For one strange, suspended second, the world went silent. I stood, smoothing the skirt of my dress, and turned so I faced the room. My eyes went straight to the bar. Ian was looking at the stage now, polite interest on his face, and then he saw me. I watched it happen in real time. Recognition, confusion, disbelief. His fingers loosened, and the glass in his hand slipped from his grip, tumbling to the floor. It shattered. The sound cut through the quiet ballroom like a gunshot. Every head in the room spun toward the bar, toward the spilled drink, and the man standing there, staring at the executive table like he'd seen a ghost. Sabrina's eyes followed the noise, landed on Ian, then snapped back to me. Her face drained of color. My name echoed through the speakers as Adrian kept talking. Something about my background, my experience, how lucky they were to have me. No one was listening. Not really. They were watching the triangle. The new female regional director at the front, the VP of sales at the executive table, suddenly rigid in her seat, the sales rep at the bar, glass shards at his feet, staring at his wife like she'd grown horns. I smiled, a small, professional, perfectly controlled smile. I gave a little wave to the crowd, the way you do when someone sings happy birthday, and you hate attention but there's no way out. Under the table, my hands were steady. Inside my chest, something was on fire. When Adrian finished, people started clapping. Some out of habit, some out of genuine excitement. Some because they had no idea what was happening, but felt they should applaud anyway. From the corner of my eye, I saw Ian move. He set the empty glass upright on the bar out of sheer instinct, murmured something to the bartender, and slipped out of the ballroom. Sabrina's jaw clenched. For the first time all night, she looked unsettled. "Excuse me," she said to the table, voice tight. "I need to check on something." She stood up and headed toward the hallway, heels biting into the carpet. I sat down, accepted a few handshakes and congratulations from people whose names I instantly forgot, and let my gaze drift casually toward the doors. My husband had just fled his own office party. His ex had gone after him, and I, the woman he'd asked to stay home because it would be awkward, was sitting at the executive table with a front row view. Eventually, when enough hands had been shaken and enough polite comments exchanged, I excused myself. "I'm just going to step out for some air," I told Adrian. "It's a lot to take in." "Of course," he said warmly. "Big night, take your time." I walked out of the ballroom, the music swelling behind me as the doors closed. The hallway was quieter, lit by softer sconces, the hum of the hotel air system filling the space. Halfway down the corridor, near a small alcove with a mirror and a potted plant, I saw them. Ian was standing rigid, back against the wall. Sabrina was inches from him, talking in a low, urgent voice. Her hand hovered near his chest like she wanted to touch him but wasn't sure if she should. He looked pale, shaken, cornered. Their heads turned at the same time when they heard my heels. Sabrina's mouth snapped shut. Ian's eyes widened, like he'd just realized there was a third option in this conversation. "Hi," I said, my tone almost pleasant. "Hope I'm not interrupting." I wasn't sure if my voice shook or if that was just the echo in the hallway. Either way, this was the moment. The one the drive over had been leading to. The one that would redraw the rest of my life. For a moment, no one spoke. It was one of those silences where the air feels thick, like the hallway itself was holding its breath, waiting to see who would move first. Sabrina recovered quickest. She straightened her shoulders, smoothing her expression into something professional, cold, and performative. "Claire," she said lightly, "congratulations on the promotion. Quite the surprise." "Isn't it?" I replied. Ian swallowed hard. His throat bobbed like he was trying to force words out of a mouth suddenly filled with sand. "Claire, I can explain." I lifted one eyebrow. "You can?" He faltered. Sabrina shot him a warning look. It was almost funny. Almost. "I'm sure you both have a lot to talk about," Sabrina said, stepping back, distancing herself in a way that telegraphed guilt more than innocence. "And I have things to attend to." She started to walk past me. I turned slightly. "Sabrina." She froze. Her spine stiffened, shoulders tightening beneath her dress in a way no one else would have noticed. "I look forward to our first one-on-one Monday morning," I said. She didn't turn around, but I saw the inhale, sharp, thin, panicked, before she disappeared around the corner. Now it was just me and Ian. He looked like someone had unplugged him. His voice came out small, shaky. "Claire, what are you doing here?" I tilted my head. "I am sorry. Did you miss the part where I was introduced as the new regional director?" His hands lifted in some half-formed gesture. "No, I just mean, why didn't you tell me?" "Why didn't I tell you?" I repeated. "Why didn't you tell me that you and your ex have been reconnecting?" He went even paler. "It's not, Claire, please. It's not what it looks like." "Really?" Because from the executive table, it looked like my husband spent the last 6 weeks flirting with his newly promoted ex-girlfriend. "That's not..." Sabrina's exaggerating, okay? She's been forward. I was just trying to keep things professional. "Professional," I echoed. "Your professional relationship involved her knowing details about our marriage, apparently." His mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Claire, I swear," he whispered. "We haven't done anything. It was just texting." "If that's true," I said, keeping my voice icily calm, "then you won't mind handing over your text records." His jaw snapped shut. I held up my phone. "You know, the ones I can request directly? Because I'm the primary account holder on our family plan, the one you insisted I set up when we got married." His face drained completely. "Claire, you don't have to do that." "Oh, I do," I said. "I really, really do." I pulled up our carrier website and began the request right in front of him. He watched, frozen, as I filled in the dates, the last 2 months, and hit submit. 3 to 5 business days, I murmured. I'm sure it will be fascinating reading. A tear slipped down his cheek, the first sign that the situation had finally broken through whatever fantasy he'd been living in. Claire, please don't do this. It's not... I never meant to hurt you. Yet here we are. He tried to reach for me. I stepped back. You're going home, I said, my voice sharp enough to cut through marble. You're packing a bag, and you're leaving the house tonight. Claire, my house, I corrected quietly. Paid with my salary for 4 years while you spent your money on new cologne, dinners, hotel rooms, whatever else I'll find in those messages. That's not fair. Oh, I said softly, you haven't even begun to comprehend what fair looks like. I didn't wait for a response. I didn't want to hear his excuses, or his weak protests, or his trembling pleas. I walked past him, back toward the ballroom. The music grew louder with every step, the laughter and clinking glasses feeling like some surreal soundtrack to the death of my marriage. I plastered on a polite smile and floated back to my seat, shaking hands, accepting congratulations, pretending my world hadn't just detonated in the hallway. Sabrina didn't return to the table. Ian didn't return to the party. I stayed until it felt socially acceptable to leave, about 20 minutes, then found the driver Adrian arranged and quietly headed home. The house looked different when I walked inside. Quiet. Too quiet. Ian's car was already in the driveway. The lights were on in the bedroom. I didn't go up there. Instead, I opened my laptop. I wrote a formal email to HR and legal. Subject line: conflict of interest. Disclosure: immediate review requested. I explained succinctly that I was taking on a leadership role. My spouse worked in sales. A potential conflict involving the VP of sales had come to my attention. I was formally recusing myself from all oversight, evaluation, or decision-making involving sales personnel. All communications regarding the situation should go through HR and legal. I copied Adrian. This wasn't kindness. This was insurance. No one would ever claim I retaliated. By the time I closed the laptop, Ian was standing in the doorway, suitcase half-packed behind him, tears streaking down his cheeks. Claire, he said hoarsely, please don't do this. I walked past him, toward the guest room where my emergency overnight bag had lived for years, more out of habit than expectation. This is your one night, I said quietly. Pack what you want. Anything left by morning goes into storage. You can arrange pickup through your attorney. You don't mean that, he whispered. I paused in the doorway. I do, I said, every word. He sobbed, but I didn't turn around. I grabbed my bag, walked out of the house, locked the door behind me, and drove to my brother Logan's place across town. He opened the door at 11:04 p.m., took one look at me, and stepped aside without asking a single question. He just went to the fridge, pulled out 2 drinks, and set one in front of me at the kitchen table. What happened? He asked softly. I stared at the condensation on the bottle. My husband, I said flatly, is having an affair with his ex, and she bragged about it to me before she realized who I was. Logan let out a low whistle. Holy shit. I nodded. Yeah, I think tonight was just the beginning. I didn't sleep much. The next morning, a notification woke me before dawn. My phone buzzed once. Your text record request is ready. Attached, a PDF, 312 pages. My heart thudded. I opened it, and then I stopped breathing. For 4 straight hours, I sat at Logan's kitchen table with my untouched breakfast beside me, scrolling through every message Ian and Sabrina had exchanged. It was worse than anything I'd imagined. Not just flirting, not just emotional betrayal. Hotel rooms, graphic texts, plans for weekends together. And 3 dates, confirmed by timestamps and location pings. Hotel None 4 weeks ago. Hotel Natu 2 weeks ago. Hotel Na 3 days before the party. Ian had told me he'd been at a client conference that day. The texts afterwards made my stomach twist. Sabrina telling him she'd forgotten what it felt like to be wanted. Ian saying he felt alive for the first time in years. Him mocking me, saying I wouldn't even notice if he disappeared for a night. Mocking me, his wife, the person who paid our mortgage, the person who cooked his dinners and picked up his prescriptions and held him through 3 job changes. When I reached the end of the PDF, my hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. Logan appeared at my side silently and placed a fresh cup of coffee in front of me. You okay? He asked. My voice didn't sound like my own. I need an attorney. Logan nodded once. Say no more. 20 minutes later, I had a consultation booked with Janet, a divorce lawyer who specialized in fault-based cases. I forwarded her the entire PDF. She called me almost immediately. "Ms. Price," she said, "this is extremely compelling evidence. We can file as early as Monday. Given the circumstances, you have strong grounds for full rights to marital assets." Her voice was calm, steady, legal. I felt like I was floating. "Do it," I said. "File everything." And that's when it really began. The unraveling of Ian's life and the reconstruction of mine. Monday morning came faster than I expected. I'd slept maybe 2 hours. Not rest, just long stretches of exhaustion punctuated by flashes of text messages, hotel receipts, and the image of Sabrina smirking over her wine glass. By 7:30 a.m., I was walking into the headquarters building with a crisp blazer, a new employee badge, and the kind of steady, contained fury that could power a small city. The front desk security guard smiled at me. "Morning, Ms. Price. HR said you might be coming in early." "Big week," I replied. Understatement of the century. I rode the elevator up to the 3rd floor. My new office, corner windows, clean white desk, ergonomic chair that didn't squeak when you moved, felt too calm, too serene, like it didn't understand the storm I had brought with me. At 7:58, there was a knock. Greg, head of HR, stepped in. Late 50s, calm voice, the kind of man who could deliver catastrophic news in a tone soothing enough to lower your blood pressure. "Claire," he said gently, "I read your disclosure from Friday night." "Good," I said. "We have a problem, a big one." He sat down opposite me, folding his hands. "We've already begun an internal review. Adrian is aware. Legal is involved." I slid my laptop toward him, open to the PDF. Greg scanned the first page, then the second. He stopped breathing around the third. "Jesus Christ," he muttered, rubbing his forehead. "This is significant." "That's one word for it," I said. He exhaled slowly. "All right, first, Sabrina Carson is being placed on immediate administrative leave, effective today." I nodded once. "Second, Ian is being transferred out of your chain of command entirely. Different territory, different manager, no contact with you. That will be effective by end of day." "Oh," I said quietly. "He'll hate that." Greg gave a humorless chuckle. "Yes, but it's necessary." There was a pause, the quiet kind, heavy with implications. "And Claire," he said more softly, "we're going to need a formal statement from you, voluntary, just to document the timeline." "Of course." He looked down at the screen again, at the time-stamped messages, the venue addresses, the humiliating details Ian had written about me to another woman. "This isn't just a conflict of interest," he said. "This is a minefield." I leaned back in my chair, suddenly exhausted. Welcome to my weekend. By 10 o'clock a.m., the office knew something was happening. Not the details, not yet. Just the smoke before the fire. Sales managers were whispering near the break room. Heads turned when I passed. Conversations paused a beat too long. It wasn't paranoia, it was pattern recognition. News travels fast in environments built on gossip and quotas. Around noon, Greg returned. "It's official," he said. "Sabrina's badge has been deactivated. She's been asked to pack up remotely and not return to the building until further notice." "Good." "There's more," he said, lowering his voice. "Finance pulled her expense reports during the initial review. There are discrepancies." "What kind?" "Personal travel billed as client trips, hotel stays marked as conferences, restaurant charges exceeding policy limits. It's, Claire, we're talking tens of thousands over 6 months." I blinked once, slowly. "That's bold," I said. "Bold is one word. Fraud is another." Greg sighed. "We're preparing a termination package. Legal may pursue recovery." Sabrina had risked her job, her reputation, her entire career for Ian, for my husband, for hotel rooms she thought no one would question. And now she was going to lose everything. "Where's Ian?" I asked. "His manager has him in a conference room. He's being informed about the transfer." I pictured him sitting there, the walls closing in, learning he'd be reassigned because his wife, me, was now his boss's boss, and that his affair partner had just been suspended. For a flicker of a moment, I almost felt pity. Almost. By mid-afternoon, Greg called again. "Ian tried to see you." "Here, in the building. He asked reception to page you. They declined. He then tried to come up to the 3rd floor. Security turned him around." I closed my eyes. "Do I need to be concerned?" I asked. "No," Greg said. "He seemed distressed, but not threatening, mostly confused, shocked. I think he truly didn't expect any of this." "Of course he didn't," I murmured. Men like Ian don't expect consequences. Still, Greg added, for your comfort, we've flagged him for limited access until the transition is complete. You won't have to see him. Thank you. He started to leave, hesitated, then said quietly, and Claire, if you need time off, HR can make that happen. No questions asked. For the first time all morning, I felt the pressure behind my eyes, a sting, a threat of tears. But I swallowed them down. I'll keep that in mind, I said. When I left work that day, the sky was a muted gray, the kind that feels too heavy for daylight. I got in my car, started the engine, and just sat there for a moment, breathing. My phone buzzed. A message from Sophie, my sister-in-law. Sophie, he showed up at our house today, begged to talk to you. We told him to leave. We're here if you need us. Another buzz. Logan, you're not alone, Claire. Whatever happens next, you're not doing it by yourself. I closed my eyes, let the words settle. I wasn't alone. Not anymore. The next morning, Ian's mother Marcia knocked on Logan's door. I heard her before I saw her, shrill, panicked, confused. Where is she? I need to talk to her. Ian is devastated. He hasn't slept. He says Claire is overreacting. Sophie opened the door, only a sliver. No, she said flatly. Marcia blinked. Excuse me? No, Sophie repeated. You don't get to come here and defend your son after what he's done. I don't know the details, Marcia snapped, because Claire won't answer her phone. Because she's done, Sophie cut in. With him, with excuses, with lies. Marcia's voice trembled. They've been married 7 years. And he threw that away, Sophie said calmly. Now leave. Logan appeared behind her. Marcia, he said, if you don't get off my porch, I'm calling the police. There was a long, shaky pause. Then Marcia stepped back. Tears welled in her eyes, the messy, desperate kind. Please, she whispered, tell Claire he made a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. Logan's voice dropped to steel. Not like this. He closed the door. I sat on the guest bed, listening to the silence that followed. Somewhere in the house, Sophie exhaled shakily. Logan muttered a curse under his breath. My phone buzzed with another message from my attorney. Everything was moving, fast, unstoppable. And silently I thought, let it burn. Let it all burn to the ground. Because I wasn't going to be the one consumed this time. By Wednesday, the situation should have been dying down. Sabrina was suspended. Ian was being transferred. HR had everything documented. My attorney had started assembling the divorce paperwork. Everything should have been stabilizing. Instead, it escalated. Spectacularly. I was in my office reviewing departmental budgets when Greg knocked and stepped inside without waiting. He looked uncomfortable, HR uncomfortable, which is worse than normal uncomfortable. It means someone has done something unforgivably stupid. Claire, he said, closing the door, we have an issue. I sat up straighter. What kind of issue? He sighed. Your husband filed a formal HR complaint over the weekend. I blinked once, slowly. Against who? You, Greg said quietly. He's alleging harassment, abuse of power, and retaliation. I stared at him. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, because that was the only sound my body could produce without screaming. Greg winced. I know how it looks, but we still have to process it. Let me guess, I said, leaning back. He's claiming that I got him transferred to punish him. Greg nodded. And that I threatened him. Another nod. And that I'm using my new position to destroy his career. A third nod. They do realize, I said, that he cheated on me with a senior executive and then lied about it to the entire leadership team, right? They do, Greg said, but accusations still trigger mandatory review. I took a slow breath through my nose. So, I said, what do you need from me? Phone logs, any communication between you and Ian for the last 2 weeks. Greg hesitated. Also, if you have any documentation of his affair that you haven't already submitted, it would help refute claims of retaliation. I have 312 pages, I said. Would you like them alphabetized? Greg let out a sigh that sounded like he needed a vacation. Just forward them to HR. We'll handle the rest. By afternoon, the rumor mill hit full speed. I heard bits of whispers near the break room. Isn't she the new director? Transferred her husband? Sabrina got suspended. Do you think she did it out of revenge? I heard he said she was controlling. I kept walking, head high, face calm, shoulders squared. People moved out of my way. I wasn't going to hide from rumors in a building full of adults who should know better. Let them stare. Let them wonder. Let them speculate. The truth was written in timestamps and hotel receipts. Around 4 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was Sophie. Sophie. He's here again. I froze. My stomach dropped. Claire, where? Logan's house? Sophie. He brought his mother this time. She's crying on our lawn. He's saying he wants to talk. My jaw clenched. Claire, don't open the door. I'll call Logan now. 10 minutes later, Logan texted me. Logan, handled. They're gone. Don't worry about it. I exhaled shakily, but the unease sat in my chest like a stone. Ian wasn't accepting the divorce. He was spiraling, and desperate people make reckless choices. The next morning, I got a text from the front desk. Security alert. A terminated employee is attempting to enter the building. Claims he needs to speak with Regional Director Price. Police have been notified. For a split second, I thought it was Ian. My heart lodged in my throat. But the follow-up came seconds later. Terminated employee identified as Carson Sabrina, former VP of Sales. My blood went cold. I rushed downstairs with Greg trailing behind me. When we reached the lobby, the scene was already unfolding. Sabrina was standing just inside the entrance, security between her and the elevators, hair disheveled, mascara smudged, eyes glossy, with the kind of panic that comes from falling off a very high cliff. When she saw me, she lunged forward. "You ruined my life!" she screamed, jabbing a finger toward me. "You vindictive, jealous!" Security stepped between us. Greg held out an arm to stop me from moving closer. "You think I don't know what you did?" Sabrina shouted. "You think I don't know you poisoned everyone against me because Ian chose me?" Chose, past tense. Interesting linguistic choice. Phones were out everywhere. Employees recording from the mezzanine, behind chairs, from the hallway. A few gasps, nervous laughter. Someone whispered, "Holy shit." I stayed still, silent, composed. Sabrina's rage only intensified in the face of my calm. "You took everything from me. My job, my reputation. You think you're better than me? You think you're smarter?" I blinked once, then spoke in the same tone I'd used to comment on the weather. "Sabrina," I said, "you were terminated for falsifying expense reports." Her face contorted. You build hotel rooms for personal affairs as client conferences. You charged dinners to the company that weren't remotely business-related. Finance found everything. "Because you told them to look," she shrieked. "Actually," Greg said evenly, "we initiated the audit ourselves." The police arrived then, lights outside. 2 officers walked in. "Sabrina Carson?" one asked. She spun toward them, half feral, half broken. "You can't arrest me," she hissed. She framed me. The officers didn't engage. They just took her arms gently. "You're trespassing," one of them said. "You were notified of your restricted access." "I'm not leaving until she tells the truth," Sabrina screeched, twisting to glare at me. I looked at her without blinking. "I did," I said softly, "last Friday." Her knees buckled. Security and the officers steadied her, then escorted her out of the building. The lobby fell into a stunned hush. Then Greg exhaled. "Good God," he muttered. "This place needs an exorcism." By that evening, videos of Sabrina's meltdown had circulated around the entire office. The hashtags employees used in the group chat ranged from darkly humorous to wildly inappropriate. And sales souffle, VP gone wild, Carson crisis, #holiday party part. HR shut the chat down within an hour, but the damage was done. Sabrina was now an office legend, in the worst possible way. I returned to my office, shut the door, leaned against it, and let myself breathe. Just breathe. But the day wasn't done. My phone buzzed again. A new email from my attorney. Subject line, spousal support motion, immediate attention required. I opened it and felt my jaw clench all over again. Ian, apparently inspired by Sabrina's theatrical collapse, had filed a motion claiming he was financially dependent on me. I forced his transfer, reducing his earning potential. He deserved temporary spousal support while adjusting. Our separation was my fault due to emotional cruelty. I stared at the email until the words blurred. Then I called my attorney. "Tell me you can crush this," I said. Her laugh was sharp, cold, merciless. "Oh," she said, "I can do far more than that." She filed the response within hours, attaching the full 312-page text record, hotel receipts, timestamps overlaying his supposed client conferences, HR's statement that his transfer was mandatory to avoid conflict, not retaliation. By midnight, the judge denied Ian's motion. He didn't get a dime, but the humiliation didn't stop him. Because the next day, something even worse hit. Ian started posting about me on social media. Cryptic, vague, martyr-like posts about surviving emotional abuse, finding courage to walk away, narcissistic spouses who manipulate the narrative, people who smile in public but destroy you in private. And the comments poured in. "You're so brave. You deserve better. Stay strong. She doesn't deserve you. You did nothing wrong." He didn't name me. He didn't have to. Everyone who knew us understood exactly who he meant. My phone lit up with messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. "Claire, is everything okay? Did you really do that to him? Ian is posting some serious stuff. I'm worried. I didn't respond to a single one. My silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. Because the more noise Ian made, the more desperate he looked. And desperate people make mistakes. But the biggest mistake, the one that would blow up in his face harder than the party, was still coming. And I had no idea how far he was willing to go. By Monday morning, I genuinely believed I had seen the worst of Ian's tactics. I was wrong. At 6:32 a.m., my phone buzzed with a call from my attorney. Far earlier than she ever contacted me. I answered immediately. "Claire," she said, voice clipped, controlled. "We have a serious problem. Ian filed an emergency motion late last night." I closed my eyes. "What kind of motion?" "A restraining order," she said. "He's accusing you of stalking him." For a second, the room tilted. "Excuse me?" "He submitted photographs of your car parked near his apartment complex, screenshots of threatening texts from unknown numbers. And," she continued, her voice tightening, "a sworn statement from Sabrina corroborating his claim." My fingers curled into my bedsheets. "Tell me you can dismantle this." "I can," she said, "but we need to move fast. I've already filed to request a same-day emergency hearing with full exhibits." "What time?" 2 p.m., she said. "Claire, bring everything." I inhaled once, shakily. "I'll be there." The hours between 6:30 and 2 p.m. felt like walking on a tightrope made of glass. HR called to warn me the complaint had reached their inbox, too. Security asked if I felt safe. Logan insisted on driving me to the courthouse. I spent the entire ride in silence, staring straight ahead, replaying every shred of my marriage. Ian laughing in the kitchen. Ian texting Sabrina. Ian panicking in the hallway. Ian filing fraudulent claims in a courthouse to paint me as the aggressor. By the time we arrived, my anger had burned down into something sharper, colder, precise. Not rage. Purpose. The courtroom was small, one of those emergency hearing rooms with fluorescent lights and pale wood furniture. Ian was already seated at the petitioner's table with his lawyer, a slick man in a navy suit and a smirk that almost begged to be punched. Ian himself looked disheveled, like he hadn't slept. Dark circles, hair uncombed. The poor, wounded husband aesthetic he'd clearly been coached into. Sabrina sat behind him in the gallery, wearing oversized sunglasses indoors. God, they really thought they were going to win. My attorney, Janet, slid her binder onto the table and leaned toward me. "I've got everything," she whispered. "Let him talk. The judge will see exactly what he's doing." The bailiff announced the judge's entrance. We all stood. Judge Harrington, late 50s, sharp eyes, zero tolerance for theatrics, sat, adjusted her glasses, and glanced at the file. "Mr. Price," she began, "you are seeking an emergency restraining order against your spouse?" Ian nodded, looking fragile. Yes, Your Honor." "Please explain why." His lawyer stood. "Your Honor," he said, with a dramatic flourish completely unwarranted for the setting, "my client is in fear for his safety. Mrs. Price has been harassing him, appearing at his residence, and sending threatening messages. We have photographs, timestamps, and witness corroboration." "Let me see them," the judge said. He handed over a folder. Ian sat there, shoulders trembling on cue. The judge opened the file. The courtroom was silent, except for the faint shuffle of paper as she examined each piece of evidence. Then, her expression changed, very slightly. But enough. Enough for me to feel it in the air. The shift. Suspicion. Annoyance. Recognition. Finally, she closed the folder. "Mrs. Price," she said, looking at me, "how do you respond to these claims?" My attorney stood smoothly. "Your Honor," she said, "every piece of evidence provided is fabricated or misleading. We have proof, overwhelming proof, that Mr. Price is lying." The judge gestured. "Proceed." Janet placed a neatly organized stack of documents on the desk. "Exhibit A," she said, "GPS telematics from my client's vehicle. It proves Mrs. Price was at work during every time Mr. Price claims she was parked outside his apartment. The locations do not match, not even close." The judge reviewed the GPS logs. One corner of her mouth tightened. "Not in my direction." "Exhibit B," Janet continued. "Carrier records showing all texts sent to Mr. Price in the last 60 days. None came from my client." She placed a second binder down. "And Exhibit C, metadata tracing the unknown, threatening messages Mr. Price submitted to Ms. Carson's phone number." Sabrina froze. The judge turned slowly. "Ms. Carson," she said, "do you wish to address why text messages traced to your phone were presented to this court as anonymous threats?" Sabrina's mouth opened, closed, opened again. I don't, maybe the system is wrong. Enough, the judge snapped, eyes razor sharp. Ms. Carson, do not lie to me. Not in this courtroom. Sabrina wilted in her seat. Janet placed one last document down. And Exhibit D, HR records, confirming Mr. Price filed a workplace harassment claim against my client that was investigated and found unsubstantiated. Ian's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. The judge steepled her fingers. Mr. Price, she said carefully, are you aware that presenting fabricated evidence in an emergency hearing constitutes fraud? Ian's face turned the color of old paper. Your Honor, I was scared. Sabrina said, oh, I'm sure she did, the judge said sharply. But you put your name on this. You swore under penalty of perjury that this evidence was true. He swallowed hard. I didn't mean... Intent is irrelevant, she said coldly. You filed a baseless emergency motion. You wasted this court's time. You attempted to manipulate judicial proceedings. She set the folder down with a firm thud. Emergency motion denied. The sound echoed through the room. And Mr. Price, she added sternly, if I see another false claim from you, I will hold you in contempt. Do I make myself clear? Ian nodded quickly, eyes wide, breathing shallow. Sabrina was frozen behind him, her sunglasses pushed up into her hair, revealing eyes rimmed red with panic. Janet sat back in her chair, satisfied. I didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't even look at Ian, because the judge wasn't done. Counsel, she said to my attorney, I strongly recommend you pursue sanctions. We intend to, Janet replied coolly. Good, the judge said. Court is adjourned. The bailiff called it. People stood. Ian looked like the floor had dropped out from under him. As I walked past, he whispered, Claire, please. I didn't think it would go this far. I paused, just long enough to meet his eyes. You never think, I said quietly. You just lie. He flinched, and then I walked out, without looking back. The next morning, settlement negotiations began. Ian's lawyer wanted privacy, to resolve matters amicably, to avoid further judicial scrutiny. Translation. He wanted to escape consequences. My attorney laid out my terms with surgical precision. Ian keeps his car. Ian keeps his personal belongings. Claire keeps the house. Claire keeps all marital savings. Claire waives nothing. Ian receives no spousal support. And most importantly, Ian signs a sworn affidavit admitting to the affair and the false claims. His lawyer sputtered. This is excessive. Janet smiled politely. No, counselor, this is generous. They accepted within 48 hours, because they had no leverage left. After 7 years of marriage, 7 weeks of deception, and 1 catastrophic month of manipulation, it was over, finalized, signed, stamped, done. But the story wasn't, because actions have echoes, and Ian's were about to hit him harder than anything I could have done. The divorce was finalized on a Friday. 4 months almost to the day after the holiday party, the night everything cracked open and spilled the truth. The final hearing was quiet, procedural, clinical. Ian said nothing. He signed the affidavit admitting to the affair, the hotel meetups, the false harassment claim, the fabricated evidence submitted to the court. The judge accepted it all without comment, though her eyes lingered on him with a look I'd seen before. Professional disappointment laced with human disbelief. When we walked out of the courtroom, Ian tried to catch my eye. I didn't stop. Didn't slow. Didn't give him even a sliver of acknowledgement. He'd made choices. Now he had consequences. After the divorce, the ripples hit fast. Sabrina lost her job permanently. The company pursued civil action for the $30,000 plus in fraudulent expenses. Her ex-husband used the scandal to modify their custody agreement. She moved back to Seattle, or fled. The line was thin, and faded from the office rumor mill like a stain scrubbed off a white shirt. Ian didn't fare much better. His transfer meant a smaller territory, smaller commissions, and significantly less income. His reputation in the pharmaceutical sales community was radioactive. Nobody wanted to hire the guy who got caught sleeping with a VP and then lying in court. Eventually, he was let go for performance issues. The real reason, nobody trusted him. His new apartment, the one Sabrina had convinced him he deserved, became a financial burden he couldn't carry. He fell behind on rent, then on utilities, then on his car payments. He tried posting motivational quotes and vague victim narratives on social media for a while. When you rise, people try to drag you down. Some people love control more than love itself. I'll rebuild stronger. But the engagement dwindled. Sympathy evaporated. His supporters tapered off as soon as something newer, shinier, or more tragic came along. It was almost poetic. The man who had desperately sought attention ended up getting ignored. Meanwhile, I rebuilt. Not dramatically, not loudly, not with some triumphant Instagram post about empowerment. Just steadily, quietly, sanely. I focused on work, and I was good at it. Really good. By spring, Adrian had mentioned the VP track twice during our one-on-ones. I joined a gym and went 3 times a week, not because of revenge or aesthetics, but because the treadmill made my mind go smooth and quiet for 40 minutes at a time. I reconnected with old friends, started leaving the office at a reasonable hour, started remembering what life felt like before I carried a man's emotional weight like a second job. I even went on a few dates. Nothing serious, just enough to remind myself that kindness exists, respect exists, interest without manipulation exists. My home was peaceful, soft music in the evenings, a tidy kitchen, a bed I didn't have to share with someone who lied in it. For the first time in years, silence sounded like safety, not loneliness. Then, one Tuesday evening, around dusk, I pulled into my driveway and saw a car parked on the street. An older model. The paint peeling. A dent in the side panel that wasn't there before. I knew the shape of it, even in the fading light. Ian. He was sitting on my front steps, hunched, thin, hands clasped like someone trying to hold himself together. I didn't get out immediately. I just sat in my car, engine running, watching him. Part of me braced for drama, screaming, demands, manipulation. But when he looked up, his eyes weren't angry. They were empty. Completely. I stepped out and shut my door. He stood slowly. "Claire," he said, voice scratchy, like he hadn't used it in days. "Please, I need 5 minutes." "Make it 3, I replied. He swallowed. Hard. "I lost my job," he said quietly. "Last week." I said nothing. "My car, it's 2 payments behind. They're going to repossess it." Still nothing. "My mom won't help anymore. She said she doesn't want to get dragged into this again." I didn't blink. He looked down at his shoes, scuffed, worn, clothes rumpled, a man unraveling thread by thread. "I know I deserve everything that's happened," he whispered. "I know I destroyed our marriage. I know I hurt you. But I'm drowning, Claire. I don't know where to go." He looked up, eyes pleading. "Just let me stay in the guest room for a week, just until I get settled." I laughed once, soft, humorless. "You want to stay?" I said, "in the house you mocked me for paying, the house you tried to weaponize in court, the house you told Sabrina I didn't deserve?" His face twisted. Shame, regret, pain, all tangled together. "Claire, please, I have nothing left." I studied him in the dim light. The same man who once stood in front of a church promising fidelity had stood in hotel rooms whispering other things to another woman. The same man who vowed honesty submitted forged evidence to a judge. The same man who had begged me to skip the holiday party so he could flirt with his ex now stood on my porch begging again. Patterns, I realized, don't disappear. They just change costumes. And I wasn't interested in the encore. "I'll help you this much," I said finally. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, transferred $500 to his account. "That's enough," I said, "for a motel and food. After that, you're on your own." His breath hitched. "That's it?" he whispered. "Yes," I said, "that's it." He stared at me a moment longer, waiting for something. Pity, forgiveness, rescue. But there was nothing left in me for him. Not love, not anger, not even bitterness. Just a cold, clean clarity. "You made your choices," I said. "Now you get to live with them." He blinked hard, tears pooling. Then he nodded, a defeated tiny movement, and walked down the steps. He sat in his car for a full minute before driving away. I waited until his taillights vanished around the corner. Then I went inside, locked the door, turned off the porch light. And for the first time since the evening of that holiday party, I exhaled fully. Ian had taken so much from me during our marriage. Time, trust, peace. But in the end, I kept the one thing he thought I'd never reclaim. My life on my terms. And while he wandered into whatever future he had left, I stepped into mine. Steady, unburdened, and completely free.